Percent overall from the field, but he was also 50% from threes. He's 5 to 10.
I know you're out there. It's okay. Stand back there.
No, more than likely you're gonna get that number 1 seed, and so I want Houston to be ranked at number 1 and 8.
Welcome in to another episode of Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. We are coming off the heels of a dominating performance by the number 5th ranked Houston Cougars basketball team as they throttled number 25 ranked Texas Tech at the Fertitta Center. They had a big bounce back response after their 2-game skid in those two really heartbreaking road losses on the road to TCU and Iowa State. Joining me, as always, Dayon Dunlap. Dayon, first and foremost, how you doing, sir?
Man, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Let's get right into it when we're talking about this game, Houston, Texas Tech. Jamal Shead. We got to start with Jamal Shead. He was a man on a mission. He did everything. He set up his teammates. 10 assists for him in this game. He had 29 points, and really he helped carry the scoring load in the first half early when it seemed like Houston was trying to find some type of rhythm offensively, and he came through and they never looked back.
It really was a point guard masterclass, just all things considered. Looking at this season, how it's going so far, how they started non-conference play, and then how they started conference play, then having a 2-game losing streak with one of your childhood friends as your backcourt mate, knowing he's struggling. And like one of the tidbits that the broadcast team said, that Jamal was kind of heckling and talking to LJ, like, come on, man, you got to get out of this shooting slump. Just kind of messing with him all week. I mean, well, not all week, since the last couple games. And so considering that and considering his aggressive approach to how he started the game, being aggressive, looking to score and set the tempo. But not only that, his shot selection of the shots that he took. He only took 1 3-pointer in that first half, had 15 points, and all his shots was inside the paint, from his mid-range, getting inside, using his floater, finishing with the right hand, going right, going left, mid-range. He really put on a full display and a point guard clinic. I think that this play right here is professional point guard play. The way he played tonight, the way he picked his spots, the way he got his team, just all around, he played a tremendous game.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, 29 points for him in this game against the Red Raiders. It is a new career high for him, and he shot the ball extremely well, 12 for 16 from the field. That's 75%. Like you mentioned, didn't necessarily shoot that many threes, but when he did, they were good ones. He was 2 for 3 from behind the 3-point line, and kind of a very interesting stat line, but only 3 free throw shot all game long by the Houston Cougars, and they all came from Jamal Shead. He was perfect, 3 for 3 from the line. It was an interesting tidbit from the broadcast here. That game was an ESPNU, but Jamal Shead only been to the free throw line for the season a handful of times. He had been to the free throw line, just roughly over 20 now, with the 3 free throws he had in this game. But yeah, that was a little bit surprising when they said that. Relatively low considering, but in this game in particular, like you said, he was being very precise. He was kind of dissecting the Texas Tech defense, and it just ignited the rest of the offense, and he was able to set up, like you mentioned, LJ Cryer, who, positive sign from him. Hopefully he's heading in the right direction when it comes to breaking out of that shooting slope. He had 8 points himself, shot 2 for 4 from the field, but this was really a case of, hey, follow my lead, and the Cougars did exactly that.
They did. Excuse me, they did. And he just set this tempo from not only his shot making, his energy, and I think that settled down LJ and really allowed him to get the wide open looks. Coach Sampson called a great play coming out of the timeout, got LJ a wide open 3. He's able to knock it down. But I love one of the plays before that. He gave up a great look, knowing he's on the slump, a wide open look, pass it to the corner to Ramon Walker, and he knocked down a 3. Then the next possession down the floor, he got a wide open look and he knocked it down. And so that's just basketball karma the basketball, having energy, finding LJ. And so I really like the game that he played tonight. Really let the game come to him, didn't force anything, got inside, was able to get something in his mid-range. But I mean, this game was about Jamal Shead. I think he really put his imprint not only on this season, but I think going forward on this team. You said he's proficient. I mean, not proficient. He was I forgot the words you used, but he was definitely efficient and prolific with his scoring and just the shots that he take. It was no bad shot. It was all shots that he know he can make, and he made them. And it was beautiful to watch. I mean, from every decision that he made, getting everybody involved, still had over 10 assists, the second game in his career with 20 points, 10 plus assists. It was beautiful.
Yeah, second game going back to his freshman season when he did it against Our Lady of the Lake. We want to welcome each and every single person that's joining us, whether you're watching us on the YouTube on Pod Slamma Jamma YouTube channel, Houston Rombar Review YouTube channel, or you're joining us from x.com on the Pod Slamma Jamma account. We have a lot of comments. Of course, we're trying to get in as many as possible. Raul in HD says, I hope you guys read this comment. Great response back in terms of Houston after the 2-game skid. Jamal was on fire all night, and everyone chipped in. However, Shed having to step up when his role to be the floor general takes, I'm assuming he's alluding, it takes away from his duty. I'm not too sure about that comment. I think in this game in particular, he was just asked. There was kind of a void where in the first half, Texas Tech was playing a lot of energy, and it was kind of reminiscent of those TCU Iowa State games where they were just hanging in. And when Jamal Shed found his groove offensively, it just flipped the switch, and Houston took off from there. And he was still a floor general in this game. He was just finding his teammates with some excellent core vision in this game. And I don't know if it necessarily took away from his duties as a floor general in this game in particular.
Yeah, I don't know about that either, because part of being a floor general is having the impulse and the vision of knowing what to be aggressive to score, knowing the impulse of your team. And I think not only having that mindset coming into the game to what I mentioned, but noticing early in the game how they were playing LJ and other players, and knowing like, okay, I need to step up to scoring. And not only that, that's still part of his duty in regards to being a floor general, not just making plays, but making plays to score, in which a lot tonight, Houston played a lot of 4 guards. And then what that did was spread the floor even more for Jamal to allow him to continue to get inside the lane and pick and choose his spots, in which when they started to collapse, he made the right play and made the pass. And so when he's really just efficient when hunting his shot, it just makes his team so good. He's oftentimes aggressive to score like he was tonight, but I think the difference was the spots that he got to and shooting his floaters, getting inside the paint, shooting his mid-range. He had like 2 or 3 mid-range jumpers. I think just that's an important shot in his game that I think he needs to add and continue to shoot even more, because I think that can set him apart. Not only how important is the 3-point shot, and of course, he needs to continue to be more of an efficient 3-point shooter. But if he can be prolific mid-range shooter a la Chris Paul with the playmaking and his decision-making and his tenacity on the defensive end, he's the best guard in the country on the defensive end, without a doubt. I think if he continues to doing that, he can definitely play in the NBA. But from what I've seen tonight, he looked like the best point guard in the country.
Yeah, you're not alone in that sentiment. Texas Tech head coach Grant McCaslin had high praise for Jamal Shed after the game. This is a quote from Joseph Duarte of the Houston Chronicle on x.com. He says that Tech head coach Grant McCaslin said Jamal Shed was not going to lose this game. He looked like the best guard in our league, which obviously we're talking about the Big 12 and how rich in talent this league is, but I think Jamal Shed and Houston in general, but Jamal Shed specifically had a statement game. They made a statement in terms of the performance they had against Texas Tech, a Red Raiders team that entered this game as the lone undefeated team in the Big 12. So with Houston's big victory over the Red Raiders, there are now no longer any undefeated teams left in the Big 12 conference. Houston improves to 2-2 in Big 12 play. Obviously, overall, they are now 15 The interesting comment I wanted to bring up from, again, one of our viewers on YouTube, by the way, if you're just joining us, whether it be on x.com, any of our YouTube platforms, be sure to join the conversation, leave a comment, and be a part of the show. But Eric Hudson says, great win, but we still need a backup point guard to run the offense. And this game in particular is very interesting. No minutes by Malik Wilson in the first half. Did not
Yeah.
play, but Kelvin Sampson still gave Jamal Shed a bit of an interesting early rest. He came out around the 16-minute mark, brought in Damian Dunn, and he kind of let LJ Cryer fill as a role of that point guard. But that's interesting there. It
Yeah.
seems like Jamal Shed is still or not Jamal Shed, head coach Kelvin Sampson is still trying to figure out how he's going to get those minutes of Jamal Shed rest and who's going to be point guard when Jamal Shed's not on the court.
Yeah, and I noticed that difference in the lineup that you just mentioned, and I think that's something that he should stick with, in my opinion, because although I spoke highly of Wilson, I like what I've seen from him. Just the way that I think LJ ignites the offense that he can, and his ability, the threat of him shooting allows LJ, and whether it's Ramon, because he also played Ramon more extensive minutes tonight early than he normally would as well. I think that's better for the team because whether it's LJ and with Jamal's off the floor, they still can have that floor spacing. And when he gets in pick and roll, it can be aggressive to look to score. But not only that, in the half court, Damian Dunn can be a player that you can play through along with JVA or J1, depending on whichever big you have on the floor. And so I like what I've seen tonight. You know, who actually had a great game was Damian Dunn. He had a
Mm-hmm.
great game tonight. Outside of looking at his scoring, not looking at that, his defense, he was everywhere. I love his decision making. He got the ball oftentimes in his spots, but he made a great choice to the way the defense was playing and not having a good look and just kept moving the ball or letting the play continue. So he really had a great game tonight defensively, his decision making offensively. And so I think playing Damian more minutes allows him to settle into the game, get that rhythm, and he can play more freely and pick and choose his spots, knowing that, okay, I don't have to force this shot here because I'm going to play more extensive minutes and I can just pick and choose my spots here more.
He was very active defensively in the game too. There was a
Very.
couple. He got a lot of tips and just being in the passing lanes, and there was a couple times where he was on the floor diving for loose balls. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Dunn came in and I mean, he played a pivotal role in this game, but he was very active, specifically not just on the offensive side, but defensively as well. Obviously, Jamal Shed steals the headlines. He had a very great offensive performance, top to bottom, but kind of an two underrated performances. Specifically, I start with Jawan Roberts because before Jamal Shed kind of found his groove, Houston was going through Jawan Roberts early, and Jawan Roberts was really the offense that Houston had for the first 5 minutes. Not only going to him in the post, but being able to clean up a lot of misses and being physical against those Texas Tech, especially against 22 for Texas Tech, or just a crazy athletic player battling in the trenches against them.
Yeah, and I like how they went to him early, coming off the game that he'd had. You want to continue, see if he's in that same rhythm that he played with in that last game, and he was able to get a bucket. And I like that inside out combination. I think you do need a low post threat, and he's showing ability that he can be that consistently, along with everything else he brings on the floor. He is another player who had a really good game, but offensively, I like that. I'm still waiting on him just to at least take one mid range jump shot. He hasn't taken one all season. He works on it so much. In our interview on our Pod Slammer Jammer YouTube with Kelly Sampson, he talked about J1 maybe even stepping out and taking some threes and showing his jumper that he worked on for the last 4 or 5 years. And we just haven't seen it yet. But I love what I've seen from him. He's not only a reliable option on offense, but defense, his rebounding, he's been spectacular.
Oh, you're exactly right, Dayon. You are not exaggerating when you said for literally the past 4 or 5 years they have been working on the jumper when it comes to the mid-range jumper, and for the past couple of seasons expanded to the 3-point line and haven't been necessarily been able to see it in the game, but maybe that's coming soon enough. But no, most definitely when it comes to Jawan Roberts, a pivotal role, and like you said, building from his good performance against TCU, and he finished with a good game, 12 points, 7 rebounds. Javier Francis himself also had 6 points, 6 rebounds. JoJo Tugler had a couple of big plays here and there. You won't see it just from a stat sheet, although he still got 5 rebounds in 13 minutes. Picked up his daily or his game average of 4 fouls, almost fouled out in those 13 minutes. But he had a very good hustle play in the second half where it looked like the ball was going out of bounds, saved it, tipped it back straight into the hands of Jamal Shed, and it sparked a fast break opportunity for Houston. So good bounce back game for him. And it come to, like we talked about against TCU, where he looked like a freshman in that game, had a couple more positive plays in this game against the Red Raiders.
Yeah, he did, and that was a great athletic play. Not to give up on that play when he saved it, which led to an and one by Jamal, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, you see bits and flashes of him, his athleticism, his length, and just all that he can be, and the upside that he has. And so, I mean, game by game, stacking it up. Maybe just still slow down. I don't know. Maybe if he's overexcited a bit with some of these fouls. He just maybe going a step too fast, and some of it is players bumping him a little bit to create the contact to cause fouls. And so, but JoJo, he's very promising, man. I like what I've seen at one time that he missed kind of a point blank floater, and he seemed to be upset at himself for missing it. But other than that, I mean, JoJo is a very has a very high ceiling, and I love his length and the way he can bother shots and even block shots. J1 blocked some good shots. I mean, JVA blocked some good shots tonight too.
Yes, sir. We'll talk about JVR a little bit in a moment. But again, for those of you guys that are joining us on YouTube, X, any of our platforms, thank you for spending time here on this Wednesday night following Houston's big win over number 25 Texas Tech 77-54. This is Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. Big thank you to Steve Saxenian for being a primary sponsor not only of this episode, but each and every single episode of Let's Rage Coogs following each and every single men's basketball regular season game. And of course, we also like to say thank you for today's secondary sponsor in Star Pizza with 3 locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. Be sure to stop by any of the locations every Tuesday during lunchtime for an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet. Star Pizza, as always, has free delivery since 1976. On the topic of Javier Francis, he also had a moment right there where, going back to last season, it was in the second half. I think it was Jamal Shed who might have given him the perfect pass, and he was right under the basket. Years past, maybe he goes up with a simple hook shot or floater. In this game, he went up, he dunked it, which is good to see that difference between him, even just something from a season ago. There was a couple times where he would shoot that floater and it would bounce out the rim. He made sure he didn't miss in this game, which again, it's a very small thing, but it's some progress that he's made over the course of last season with, just with experience. You have to go up and dunk it, especially in this league.
The some adjustment that he made over the last couple of weeks. We've been asking for that, and over the last couple of weeks, he has been going up with force and aggression and dunking the basketball. And it's been good to see. I think even Coach Sampson mentioned it in one of his weekly press conference of wanting JVA to go up and dunk the basketball. And I love what I see from him. I think this with this matchup. Houston played a lot of 4 guards with J1 at the 5, but when J1 is on the floor, he impacts the game, especially on defense, because he bothers every shot and blocks most of them. But most shots he's going to go up, he's going to bother it if he's anywhere near the rim. It's just his length and his activity, the way he's able to rotate, move his feet to guards and help helpers. And the defense it looks like the best of the country. The way they rotate, the way they play all together on one string, and JVA is the anchor of that on the back end, cleaning up everything. I love this team defensively. I love him being the anchor on the back end.
Bring up this comment by Rusty Reed. Javier dunker pass. He said 3 hook shots that weren't even close. The hook shots, I think what bothered Francis, I feel like a lot of the defense, or maybe it's just the way the play turned out, but he got pushed out. Some of those hook shots, he was shooting it from way out there, and maybe it's just give credit to Texas Tech bigs. But yeah, there was a couple of hook shots where he shot them from pretty far, and yeah, like Rusty Reed pointed out, they weren't necessarily the prettiest hook shots.
Yeah, no, Rusty's right on that one.
Gian Cardenas's comment: first official win this season against a ranked opponent where Houston played them being ranked, and Dayton is now in the top 25, but obviously they weren't ranked when Houston played them a couple months ago. So I mean, for the people that specifically when it comes to across the Big 12, they were, oh, Houston can't beat a top 25 opponent. Well, they did that today, and not only did they beat Texas Tech, but they did so in a very convincing manner. Although, if you look at the net rankings, Houston lost 2 games, and they just did not move from number one. So you'll take a win against a ranked team. It's good, but they're going to have more opportunities. One very well that obviously they're not going to be a ranked team when they come in here on Saturday, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're ranked by the time the season ends, and that's UCF, who pulled up a big win in Austin against the Texas Longhorns. And obviously, of course, we know that they pulled up a big win not too long ago against Kansas at home in Orlando. So that's not going to be obviously every game in the Big 12 is not going to be easy, but former American Athletic Conference opponent is going to be a tough test for the Cougars because UCF is playing really well, and they've shown that they're playing with the big boys really well. But we'll talk about UCF later in a bit. Let's talk about Emmanuel Sharp, who almost the exact same stat line as LJ Cryer. He had 8 points, 3 for 8 shooting from the field, shot 2 for 5 from the three, as compared to LJ Cryer's 2 for 4 from the 3-pointer. But he also had 3 rebounds, had 3 personal fouls, but he hit some big threes early in, honestly, throughout the game, where it helped create separation against Texas Tech. What did you see from Emmanuel Sharp in this game?
He definitely did hit some timely threes earlier. But like Dayon, I think he's another player who had a really good game. With not really just looking at his scoring, the other ways that he impacted the game, the way he played defense, the way he was moving, actually moved the ball, wasn't a ball stopper. Not that he is often, but he just did a good job of playing his role for tonight. I think all players recognized that it was Jamal's night, and they relished in there. And they kept the ball in his hands, kept in the flow of the game, and kind of keeping him alive with how he was hot and how he was rolling. So he did a good job of that because the shots that he made were good looks created by Jamal. And I think with his threat of his 3-point ability, what really enables. And I think one of the comments say Jamal should be the first option going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Right here, I think I agree with that. I think I agree with that. Although LJ is a better shooter, we do have probably better scores. I think with this team, Jamal should be the first option going forward in the realm of keeping the right floor spacing, allowing him to make the right play, whether it be to score or whether it be to pass. I think that's the option that it needs to be. And of course, Coach Sampson is great in calling certain sets out of timeouts and getting certain players the ball and letting the story of the game dictate what he does in the game. But to start the game, I definitely can see Jamal being the first option.
And I agree with you for a sense in terms of, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Jamal Shed 1, Jawan Roberts 2, and what I mean by that, like I think LJ Cryer and Emmanuel Sharp as well, they do much better when they catch shots and they're in rhythm, much so as they're asked to be the number one option. Hey, go get a basket. And I think once they can get easier baskets in rhythm, hopefully that gives them confidence later on in the game. And the 2 players that really, or the 1 player specifically that can kind of go to create a shot like we saw today is Jamal Shed, and that just feeds off the rest of the team. And obviously we know Jawan Roberts, he is a very, very person you can just drop in the post and you can count on him on being able to get a quality shot, and more often than not being able to get you 2 points down there in the low post, which again in this game we saw Jawan Roberts go first and then Jamal Shed carry the load later on.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think we're what you're referencing is in the half court set.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Him
yes.
being the primary, I'm with the second option, and I would agree with that. I think I like that, and that gives you a balanced attack, but as well because sometimes in you have transition sets in which Jamal and maybe Dayon or whoever, I mean not Dayon, LJ, whoever can be that first option in those sets. But like you said, when the game slows down in half court, I think Jamal, then J1 too. But the X factor on this team going forward, and Fred Fraschilla mentioned it, and I agree 1,000%, is Dayon Dunn. I think just a consistent play and his ability to take over games and ability to score at a prolific and efficient rate with what he's doing defensively could take Houston over the top to be a really, really contender and really, really hit their stride and be a national championship contender. Because I think, I mean, we see what we're going to get from LJ, and it kind of reminds me of Kyler Edwards in regards of what he brings this team. Defense, can play on ball and can make some plays here and there. It can create some shots a little bit here and there for himself a little bit off the pick and roll, but is an exceptional spot up shooter. And I would say he's probably even a better spot up shooter, in my opinion, than Kyler. But I think I agree with you for sure there. And then with Emmanuel, and I've talked about this in previous episodes. I think he's developed so much, and is developing into a scorer. Like we're mentioning, someone can get it off the bounce, and he's done a tremendous job of not just being a spot up shooter and not only being able to create plays, but get himself to the free throw line and being a scorer in different ways. And so, but in the realm of what we're saying, I definitely agree with what you. I think J1 2 in the half court for sure.
You mentioned Fraschilla in the ESPN broadcast. One of the things that they mentioned today, which I want to bring up because I find it, I tended to agree with what they said, but X Factor, Dayon Dunn, when he's going offensively, and obviously that's been the big what if question that we've been talking about for now 17 games. But if they're going to make a deep NCAA run, which is what they mentioned in the ESPN broadcast, he's going to be pivotal in terms of how far Houston goes. And I agree 100% with that. Like we mentioned today, he was active defensively. He didn't have any eye-popping offensive numbers, but he played his role really well. He came in, didn't make any mistakes when it comes, if you want to use Rusty Reed's comments, but he is going to be pivotal in terms of Houston's success, not only later on in Big 12 play, but also however far they go in the NCAA tournament this year.
Yeah, I agree 1,000% because I think LJ is already set in stone in regards to what he's going to bring. It's just going to be, is he making his shot? And if he's making his shot, then that's great. But regardless if he's making a shot or not, it seems as if he's going to be on the floor. And the threat of him being on the floor still is enough to impact the game on the offensive end. And with that, you could add Dayon Dunn and his ability to isolate in the mid-post and create, whether for himself or for others, with LJ, whether with Emmanuel and Jamal, all potentially be in the game at the same time. It only can really take them to another level because it adds another scoring option in the half-court set, but just in any set in regards to a shot maker. He can isolate, he can knock down threes, he can catch a shoot, he can create it off the bounce, like you seen the pull-up three that he made today. And so I think he's definitely the X factor going forward. And with him being consistent, I think from him, it just takes to playing more minutes and getting that consistency and that rhythm. And I think he continue to build on what he's done so far in the season, can then stack up the consistent games, game by game.
Rusty Reed's comment on YouTube, bringing some data to today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs. He's called it Fertitta Center, the Den of Doom. Big 12 opponents averaging a 28.5 point loss, scoring just 54.5 points. He's exactly right there. Texas Tech was held exactly to 54 points in this game. Obviously, West Virginia was held to 55 a couple of weeks ago in the Big 12 opener that Houston had. I want to bring up the Boss 19's comment. Curious to get your thoughts. Do you think Shed can sustain this load? Remember, his knees gave out last year during March. I think the biggest thing is just trying to be able to give him consistent rest, which, again, like we mentioned in this game, it stood out to us where 60 minutes he's out and he gets a rest, and he got like a minute or two in addition to the media timeout to be able to rest. And it's gonna have to be moments like that, because again, we talked about it again, not to bring up the ESPN broadcast a lot, but they mentioned how last year in the American Athletic Conference, And when it was those Memphis games, those were the physical battles in conference. Well, here in the Big 12, every single game is like that. We even saw in the beginning of this game where, Texas Tech was matching the physicality of Houston the first 6, 7, 8 minutes until Houston was able to create some separation and they got up by 10. So, how, as much as wear and tear that Jamal Shead had a season ago, they're going to need him to be able to pull out these wins against Texas Tech opponents, and it definitely is going to take its toll on Shed through the season. It's just going to be able to find those moments, be pivotal in terms of when he comes out and get rest and kind of play the system and try to buy him some extra time when it comes to taking advantage of the media timeout.
Yeah, I think he can sustain it, but like you said, it's important for Coach Sampson and his staff to monitor his minutes and not overdo it, and make sure he's healthy and has enough gas in the tank down the stretch to fully put his foot on the pedal the way we need him to in the NCAA tournament. But through conference play, I think you can manage the minutes with how he did tonight with LJ initiating the offense or others. But like Rusty said, Rusty's been on it tonight. Malik is definitely the best slasher, but he hasn't been able to put the ball in the hole consistently. And he's got a good looks, but just call it what it is. He hasn't put the ball in the hole consistently. But getting inside and slashing and his ability to grab the rebound and control the tempo, I think it's still a role for him in certain games. And so I think it's a game by game basis. I think Cole Sampson is still trying to figure out that right 7 or 8 guys rotation that he's going to lock in and really trust. And I think tonight was a bright sign, and it could be playing Ramon a little more. And I really, really like that because of all the things that he brings. And I'm a huge Ramon Walker fan. And I think with him showing that he can knock down the three and his willingness to take those shots can only bode well for this team, especially when they go to that 4-guard lineup and he's one of those fourth guards. And so I think it is. I think he can sustain it, but they have to monitor his minutes going down the rest of the season.
Yeah, to add on to Rusty Reed's comment, most definitely Malik Wilson, like we touched on post game against TCU, I believe. Best slasher, he has a very good ability at being able to get to the rim, being able to finish once he gets to the rim, has been a different story. Let's talk about Ramon Walker on the other side. But again, real quickly, thank you to each and every single one of you guys that are taking the time out of your Wednesday night to watch us live, whether it be on the Part-Time Jamma YouTube channel or the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel or on our Part-Time Jamma X account. Join us, be a part of the conversation. Thank you, Rusty Reed, DBoss19, Gian Cardenas, Michael Jones, Kris B, Jack Travis, Ron HD, Ignacio, and Eric Hudson for taking the initiative to comment on the show. We'd like to hear from you guys what you think of this bounce back win by number 5 Houston against, like Gian Cardenas mentioned, 25 ranked Texas Tech. First win for Houston this season when they beat a ranked opponent that was ranked at the time of the game. And of course, we'd like to welcome each and every single one of you to Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. Let's Rage Coogs is the original Houston post-game show for each and every single men's basketball and football game. And like I mentioned, a big thank you to Steve Saxenian, who is the primary sponsor not only of today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, but each and every single episode for the remainder of the men's basketball regular season. And for today's show, also a thank you to Star Pizza for being today's secondary sponsor. Star Pizza with 3 locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. Be sure to stop by any of the locations every Tuesday during lunchtime for an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet. Star Pizza, as always, has free delivery since 1976. And with that being said, Dayon, you hit it the nail right on the head right before we did our ad reads. But Ramon Walker in this game, it was something that it was very clear during that run that Texas Tech was more than willing to give up the corner 3 to Ramon Walker. He was open the first time, didn't hesitate, shot it, didn't make it. It was short, but it came right back to him. And again, no hesitation. And he made it the second time. And that is big right there for him when it comes to a confidence standpoint, that he's not second guessing. He's open. He lets it fly. And it doesn't hurt that the ball goes through on his second attempt, because now that's something where, hey, if he's able to knock down that shot at a 33% clip. Like 1 out of 3, that's something that if you're Houston, you'll take. And if your opponents like that, that could be the deck. Like that, it's really hard to be able to stop Houston if he's knocking down those shots at like I said, at least like 1 out of 3. I think Houston would take that every day of the week.
Yeah, and one thing he did, he put that on film. That's something teams are going to watch film and realize, okay, he can make this shot. So don't just stand back and not and allow him to shoot him, or they may have the mindset will prove that he can make this shot. And so for him, like you said, excuse me, taking and making that shot and not no hesitation, showing confidence and letting it go and making it was big. I think if he can do that and make it maybe 1 out of 3 or an efficient clip, he can earn us more. He can earn even more minutes because of at the end of the day, you got to be able to put the ball in the hole. Coach Sampson, he does definitely wants you to play defense and culture, do all that. But at the end of the day, he's gonna put people on the floor who can put the ball in the hole. The game doesn't count stops. It doesn't count that
You
it
can't
counts
score on
points.
stops. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't score on stops, and so I definitely big sign for Ramon, and hopefully that's something going forward that builds confidence and he can get more minutes to earn a role here for the rest of the season.
Raul HD says, thank you for having us on and for being podcast host. Y'all are awesome. Love the analysis you provide and breakdown of the game, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And big thank you right back, Raul, for
Yeah,
not
thank you,
only
Raul.
for the compliment, but like we said, for being a active participant and listener engaging with the conversation. No, Dayon, to your point, I mean, Coach Calvin Sampson said it on record too. They recruit players for their offensive skill set, for the talent. Once they get to the campus, they can teach them the defense. But no, absolutely, like you said, the goal of the game is to put the ball through the basket. I'm looking through the social media. One of the comments Calvin Sampson said about LJ Cryer, he said, this is courtesy of GoCougs.com. I love the way LJ played defense tonight. So most definitely LJ Cryer's defense, a high point in this game. Give me a second. The quote um, fell off. Okay, I love the way LJ played tonight. His defense was incredible. I can't tell you how proud I am of LJ. End quote. So high praise from the head coach on Mr. Cryer following this big win over Texas Tech.
Yeah, and I love the way he played defense as well. I think, like I mentioned with Damon and Emmanuel, I mean, all three of those players really had good games, and they really had not much to do with offense. I mean, the way that it was, I can remember a sequence where LJ stopped the ball. I think Damien, well, he helped Jamal and was able to stop the ball. That Damien helped him and stop the ball, and so it was tremendous defense. I mean, 1,000%. I love the game that he had tonight.
And joining us from inside the Fertitta Center is Kris Gardner of the Houston Round Ball Review. Kris, can you hear us?
I can now that I plugged in my buds. Yeah.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are y'all doing?
I'm good. Let's get to it. The group, before we even get into any of the post game, the biggest thing, Kris, when Houston went on that run in the first half and they initially got up to 10, we could hear it from the broadcast, but what was it like to be in the stadium? What was the crowd like in this game against Texas Tech?
It was great and annoying. There was a good number of Texas Tech fans in the building. Had a very loud, some would say, obnoxious man sitting next to us in the immediate section. He would lead the Raider chants and yell and scream after every Tech bucket. And for some strange reason, he would yell, "It's quiet," after Tech scored or during timeouts. And some of the Cougar fans are like, "Yo, man, it's a timeout. Yeah, it's quiet," kind of thing. And then some of the Cougar fans started pointing to the scoreboard, doing a scoreboard chant, and he wasn't very good at responding to those kind of things. But I'll give him credit. He stayed till the end of that butt whooping that the Cougars put on his team. And so Big 12 fans, I guess it's good to have a lot of Tech fans in Houston to attend the game, or maybe they came from Lubbock, whatever. That's part of being in Big 12 also. So rivalries is here. Fans are going to be obnoxious. part of it. But salute to Jamal Shead and his career night.
Let's talk on the topic of Jamal Shead. What did Kelvin Sampson have to say about Shead after the game?
Uh, it was funny. A colleague asked a question about Coach Sampson's thoughts on Jamal's career night. 29 points, 10 assists, had a great percentage. Coach Sampson's majority of his answer was about the experience of Reggie Chaney compared to the inexperience of JoJo Tugler. And then he got to Jamal Shead toward the end of the answer about Jamal may never have another night like tonight. So don't expect it. And he was harping on folks who may say the cliche, if Jamal plays like this, the Cougars could be the team to beat this year. Or if Jamal did, that kind of stuff. So he made his point. Then he took a few shots at media with, certain cliches and things of that sort. But he touched on it that he spoke to Jamal, shoot around, and he said that he told Jamal that how much he appreciated him for what he's done and how he's grown in the program. And Coach said, and this is the first time I've heard him say this about Jamal, really, he said Jamal, when he really got to know him, when Jamal was younger, freshman, coming as a senior recruit in high school, Coach Sampson said Jamal was a turd. He said Jamal was a kind of player that for a weaker coach, he would run over that coach. Coach Sampson said Jamal needed a tougher coach like him to make Jamal a better player, a better person. And Jamal just nodded his head. Yes, that's true. So Coach said that God put Jamal in his life to make Jamal a better player and Jamal be part of this program.
Yeah, definitely. That's the first time I've heard of that. That's interesting from the Jamal Shead we've seen the past 2 seasons. It's hard to believe, but Dayon, you got anything to say about that comment?
Nah, I think it is kind of surprising because you never really heard that analogy associated with Jamal. But and to his cliche in regards to if Jamal can have a night like this, then Coogs, whatever he would have said. For me, it's not necessarily having a scoring night like this. It's more about taking the shots that he shot tonight like this. He only took three threes, but most of his shots was inside the arc, inside the paint, from his floaters to his mid-range game. And whether he's making or missing those shots, if he's taking those shots, getting inside the lane, that opens up the complete offense and creating shots for LJ, for Emmanuel, or if you want to throw it down the block to Dayon or Dayon. So just the mindset of I'm a create the tempo. I'm gonna set the intensity with being aggressive, whether I make or miss my shots tonight. I'm setting the pace. This is how we're going tonight. Follow my lead. If he can play like that and do that, then Houston can do whatever they want to do for this season. They can reach their goals, in my opinion.
And Tech's head coach Grant McCaslin said after the game of Jamal Shead, he said Jamal Shead was not going to let Houston lose tonight. He willed the Cougs. It was just like no doubt in his mind that Jamal Shead was leading the Cougars to win tonight. You could just see it. Coach McCaslin said something that we've touched on a lot about newcomers, teams who have not faced Houston before. He said it. Houston's physicality, their length, their toughness on defense took his guys a while to get used to because they had never seen it before. And he said, hey, this is the best defensive team in the country. This is where we want to be eventually. And so he commended and saluted Coach Sampson and the staff and the players for how they played defense, the physicality, the athleticism, the length, and all those things. And he said something that Coach Sampson said last 2 games. This is what we want, guys. We want the competition. We want to play against the best. We play against one of the best teams tonight.
And Kris, a top 25 win, because we know how crucial that top 25 number is
to certain fans, to some fans, yeah.
But
it's a Q2 win for the Cougs, though, yeah.
Interesting, a quad 2 win. What I did want to talk about, one of the other things that
quad 2 win against a ranked opponent.
Yeah, because
it's 2023 for you.
They're like 32, and it's a home game too as well. If it was a 32 at Lubbock, it'd be quad 1.
So it's 1 through 30 for
Right.
when you're playing at home.
Right.
So on that topic of the post game press conference, I saw it from one of the tweets that we mentioned before you hopped on. But Calvin Sampson had high praise for LJ Cryer, specifically his defense in this win against Texas Tech.
Yes, he did. He said LJ and Jamal kind of said it as well. That LJ's defense was a spark to them. To Jamal, he saw how locked in LJ was defensively. That kind of set a tone for Jamal and other players. And Coach Sampson commended LJ. He said to us, LJ, don't worry about scoring. You just play good defense. We'll figure out the rest. Hey, LJ keeps doing that. He'll be fine. He got good looks. He'll be fine. Defense was consistent from him for the most part. That's what you want to see.
Any other takeaways from the post game presser?
He said, and you kind of like this. He wanted to get Juan touches on the low block. He moved him from one block first half, different side, second half because of how Tech was defending him. But Coach Sampson said, and it stuck with me. He said, sometimes I have to believe in Juan more than he believes in himself. And Juan said, I asked him his thoughts on that after the comment. He said, yeah, sometimes Coach believes in us more than we believe in ourselves. We get down on missing a shot, or we have a missed rotation or something like that. Coach Sampson just says, next play, move on to the next play, make up for it. Don't worry about him on. And Juwan said, you want to play for a coach like that. You want to play for a coach who believes in you and sometimes believes in you more than you believe in yourself because he trusts you that you'll get it done and he'll keep going to you out of that belief.
Yeah, and I bet this is the first time in Jaywan's career, probably felt this sometimes last year as well, that he's been counted on to score the basketball. I would like to ask him that. I don't know that for certain, but observing and following his game and hearing what I've heard from him speak and just from the reporting and all of that, I would bet that I'm not surprised with that statement because I would imagine this one of the first times that he's been counted on as a scorer and been pounded into him like you have the ability to do it. Look, you can do it. Do it. Mm-hmm. Along with, like we said before you jumped on, and we talked about this in previous episode, was he's still yet to face up and shoot even the mid-range jump shot.
Yep.
Not even the three, but at least the mid-range. He's been working that for 4 or 5 years. So I think that goes back into his comment and Coach Sampson's comment with believing in him and putting that confidence in him that they believe, which allow him to play freely and play more confident and play through some of the highs and lows within the basketball game.
Yeah, Dayon, absolutely. Like we touched on before, Kris hopped on early in the show, but yeah, just from observing, like you can clearly tell that they see Juwan Roberts as one of their go-to scorers. When they need a basket, they go to him in the post. And like we mentioned earlier, more often than not, he comes through. Kris, before we begin to wrap things up, next opponent for Houston, Saturday afternoon inside the Fertitta Center, but a familiar opponent, but a very tough opponent that has 2 big wins. Obviously, we talked about Kansas a couple days ago when they beat them in Orlando. Well, tonight they went to Austin and they beat the Longhorns in Texas. UCF, what do you see from them? And it's going to be another tough opponent. All games in Big 12 are, but a familiar foe. Knights are playing very good basketball heading into this matchup.
They are, and they outscored the Horns by 18 in the second half on the road to beat the Horns by 6. They were down 12 at halftime and outscored Texas 45-27 second half to win that game. Coach Dawkins, UCF has come in this building and won a couple times. When highly touted teams, raucous crowds. So it won't be anything new for Coach Dawkins. He can tell the players, we've come in here and won in this place before. Mm-hmm. Coach Sampson can tell his players, we faced them and lost to these guys before. So we know this is not going to be an easy matchup. I'm looking forward to it. It's 1:00 on Plus. But salute to them. We can Other horn shows can talk about Coach Terry's comments about the horns down stuff, whatever. Give me a break. That's what kids do. I mean, whatever. You should be more upset about being outscored by 18 points in the second half to UCF. But anyway, should be a tough matchup. UCF, I think, they're also 2-2 in conference play.
Yeah.
Who's got to protect home court? And they'll be locked in because all they have to be told, we faced them before. They just won in Austin. So let's go get it done.
Yeah, like you mentioned, big wins. And it doesn't matter whether it was in Orlando or anywhere. Anytime you beat Kansas, it is a big deal. You got to be a really good team to be able to pull that off. Kris, what you think of this? We mentioned it before you hopped on, but okay. Numbers never lie. Data. Houston shot 100% from the free throw line in this game. Only shot 3, and they all came courtesy of Jamal Shed. Interesting in terms of, the way that shook out. I think that's the first time I've seen that in a game for Houston.
Yeah, I didn't even notice it. That the Cougs Jamal Shed took all 3 free throws for the team. They were rolling so well in the second half. Shooting, 64% in the second half. It was a non-factor. The refs let them play. Both teams play. Texas Tech only had 9 fouls in the game total and only 3 in the second half. So they weren't fouling. You could argue their defense, they weren't even close enough to be physical with Houston on some of the drives and things like that. But it's a rarity. I think it'll be called differently on Saturday. And if so, the Cougs will adjust and go from there.
Dan, you got anything to
add? No, excuse me. No, not really. No, I think Kris is mad.
That pretty much is going to do it for today's
One thing I want to say before we close it out.
Yep, go ahead, Kris.
Coach Sampson mentioned that JoJo Tugler is not ready to play at the 4 consistently because he's still thinking too much, overthinking how to handle switches on guards and stuff like that. So you might see Ramon Walker more at the 4 spot because Ramon has more experience and he knows what to do on switches. Just something to toss out there for the fans.
Which, Dayon, to your point, you mentioned it earlier. Yep. He looks uncomfortable at times. So, very, like you said, most definitely very interesting comments from Coach Kelvin Sampson. But yeah, you can kind of see it. Freshman at times looks like he's thinking more than just reacting. That's going to do it for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs. Like we mentioned, thank you to each and every single one of you guys that took the time to watch this on a Wednesday night, whether it be on any of our platforms on x.com, our Protestant Majama YouTube channel, or if you're watching us on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel. Thank you to Juan, Apollo, Raul, Rusty and everyone else that took time to comment on today's episode. If you're watching us audio only or the next day on any of these platforms, thank you as well. This is Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. So big shout out to Steve Saxenian for being a primary sponsor not only of today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, but each and every single men's basketball post-game show this regular season. Let's Rage Coogs, the original post-game show for each and every single Houston Cougars football and men's basketball game, and the only post-game show to be retweeted by head coach Kelvin Sampson. Shameless plug. And of course, thank you to our secondary sponsor for today's episode, Star Pizza, with 3 locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. Be sure to stop by any of the locations every Tuesday during lunchtime for an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet. Star Pizza, as always, has free delivery since 1976. That being said, Kris, I'll toss it over to you. Any final thoughts that you want to add before we close things out?
No, just great job by you two guys carrying the show. Coach McCaslin was a little later than we expected or hoped to come talk to the media. So that kind of pushed me back before hopping on the show, but it's okay. Thank you, everyone, for watching Let's Rage Coogs. Thank you for your comments, your questions. Spread the word about our show. As Andy said, we are the original post-game show for Houston football and men's basketball. Follow me on the platforms, Houston Roundball Review on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to that channel. Or follow me on Threads, Instagram, TikTok, at Houston Roundball Review, Spottable as well. And we'll see you on Saturday afternoon.
Yes, sir. To follow on up, be sure to subscribe to whatever platform you're watching, whether it be on Pod Simon Jamma YouTube, if you're watching on the Houston Ron Bar Review YouTube, x.com. Hit the follow, hit the like, and be sure to support us in that way. Thank you again for all of you guys for joining. If you guys want to follow me on my personal Twitter, it's Ayannis_5. With that being said, Dayon, I'll toss it over to you. You get the final word and any closing thoughts.
First and foremost, thank you to all the supporters, everyone that commented and watched and react to the show. We wouldn't really, well, we would, but we wouldn't be able to really do this without your support. And of course, thank you to Andy and Kris. Of course, it's always a pleasure joining alongside you guys. And much needed win today. Shout out to the general, Jamal Shed, man. Point guard masterclass tonight from start to finish. I mean, from the decision making to the shot making to the creating, everything that you did from mentality to intensity really set the tone tonight. And I want to commend you. Hats off to you, Jamal. Good win. Can't wait for Saturday. Go Cougs.